Last night, Nick Robinson interviewed the Prime Minister in the first of a series of election interviews, and this being the first interview since Sunak decided to leave D-Day early, well, let's just say he didn't come off looking very good. He's still sticking to the line that Labour are going to be increasing taxes by £2,000, and although Nick Robinson did a fantastic job trying to hold him to account, it's a shame that they were clearly running out of time, because people really do need to get into the detail of this bogus claim. He goes through it twice, based on 27 different policies, yet only 2 of them they've taken from Labour themselves. And obviously they don't have Labour's costings, so they've just had to guess. And the rest of the policies, these figures are based coming from government sources or international bank or special advisors. And he repeats it twice, yet nobody is actually picking up on those and saying, well, they're not labelled policies, are they? Now, naturally, Labour haven't given the Conservatives their spending plans, so the Conservatives have totted all these imaginary policies up, divided by every single family in the country, which again you don't do because some people are on higher incomes and some people are on lower incomes, and it's not divided evenly between them. And they're taking these figures, which would be over a 4-year period, and then they're condensing them down to 1 year. So even if the 2000 tax rise was true, which is not, then that would be spread over 4 years. So if you divide that down by months, you're looking about £40 a month. Which is really what they're saying, is that Labour are going to be putting up your taxes by £40 a month, based on some imaginary policies we've made up. And yet they're still sticking to the lie, even though it's been debunked. Obviously, they went through quite a bit of policies, and so nothing really got down into real detail of things, where he just sounds like a robot. He's clearly rehashing answers that he knew questions would be coming up. So when they say this, you answered that. When you say this, they say that. So he really wasn't actually listening to what the question was, just waiting for the next buzzword so that he could repeat the line he's rehearsed. I did like Nick Robinson's comment at the end though, and they asked him why should they give him another 4 years. So listen out to his answer for that one. So here are the highlights. There's a link in the description if you'd like to watch the full interview.
And you know that this is what people are talking about. I want you to look at a photograph. I want you to look at this photograph. The President of the United States, the Chancellor of Germany, the President of France, and for the United Kingdom, your predecessor, David Cameron, the Foreign Secretary. How do you feel when you look at that photo of D-Day at Omaha Beach?
Well, the last thing that I wanted to do was cause anyone any hurt or offence or upset, which is why I apologised unreservedly for the mistake that I made. And I can only ask that I hope people can find it within their hearts to forgive me, and also look at my actions as Prime Minister to increase investment in our armed forces, to support our armed forces, but also to ensure that veterans have a minister sitting around the cabinet table with unprecedented support to make this the best country in the world.
Do you understand that for quite a lot of people watching, I think, they simply think that the basic duty of the Prime Minister, the duty, was for you to be in that photograph and not David Cameron?
Well, that's why I've apologised unreservedly for the mistake, and I hope people can find it in their hearts to forgive me. My duty is also to make sure that this is a country which looks after our veterans, which is why I'm proud that there is a Veterans Minister sitting around the cabinet table.
Nigel Farage has said he thinks you don't understand, you don't care about what he called our culture, what he called our history. He even said that you were not basically patriotic. Is he playing with fire by bringing your heritage into this argument?
Well, Nigel Farage can answer what he exactly meant by those comments. I'm not going to get involved in that because I don't think it's good for our country or good for our politics. Now, obviously, I disagree with
that. Nigel Farage has destroyed David Cameron's premiership. He helped bring down Theresa May, and he's now coming for you. And isn't your problem that many Conservatives think he's more of a Conservative than you are?
Well, at the end of the day, on July 5th, there is only going to be one person that's Prime Minister.
But I'm asking about Nigel Farage.
Well, and I'm answering a question. So the choice for everybody, there's only going to be one of two people who's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer or myself. A vote for anyone who's not a Conservative candidate is just make it more likely that Keir Starmer is that person. So if you are someone, you say, you know, what makes a Conservative? If you're someone who wants lower taxes, if you want your pension protected, if you want migration reduced, if you want a sensible approach to net zero that prioritises our security and reducing people's bills, that's what I will offer you in this election.
So you won't talk about Nigel Farage at all. You see, a lot of people looking at him and you, they think, these Conservatives, that he's a kind of Sunday roast with all the trimmings and you're a quinoa salad.
But you're asking me about personalities.
I'm asking you about Nigel Farage, and people are noting you don't want to talk about him. So let's talk about policy if you don't want to talk about him.
It's not that I'm not willing. I'm willing to talk about everything here. But the simple issue here is a vote for anyone else, including Nigel Farage's party, and I would make the same point about anyone's party, right, is ultimately a vote that makes it more likely that Keir Starmer is in power.
You promised when you became Prime Minister to cut NHS waiting lists. Have they gone up or down since you made that pledge?
I've been very clear. We have not made as much progress on NHS waiting lists as I would have liked, and they have risen.
They've gone up.
Yeah.
I promised you'd stop the boats. So far this year, more than 11,000 people have crossed the channel, record high. You've not stopped the boats. Why do you deserve more time to try to do it?
Because from the first time that small boats became a phenomenon a few years ago, we got the numbers down last year by a third. That had never happened before. Everyone, when I got this job, said to me, you won't be able to do anything about this problem. Well, because of our plan, we've got the numbers down by a third last year.
Now they're going back up again. You've got a record number this year.
But if we stick to our plan, we will continue to bring them down. Why? Because if I'm re-elected as Prime Minister, we will get flights off to Rwanda and establish a deterrent. So very simply, my view that illegal migration is unfair, and the only way to fully solve this problem is for people to know that if they come to our country illegally, they won't be able to stay. And that means we have to have somewhere safe to return them. And if I'm Prime Minister, the flights will go, the deterrent will be built.
But why not wait, Prime Minister? You say the flights will go to Rwanda. You say they'll go in just a few weeks' time. You had the opportunity to prove it. You could have said to everybody, here are the flights. People have gone to Rwanda. Here's the deterrent. The numbers are falling. You didn't. You cut and run. You had the election before. And now we have to take it on trust.
Well, no, because as I said, we got the numbers down by a third last year. That had never happened before.
How many people have gone to Rwanda in the 3 years since you announced that you would do this?
Because it's taken time to get this through Parliament, because we've been
None is the
frustrated.
answer.
Yes, and that this election's about the future, and there's a clear choice, Nick. Right? If you believe, like I do, the only way to solve this problem is to have a deterrent, we're the only party that can deliver that.
You sound to me like a guy in a pub who borrows 50 quid. And he borrowed it 3 years ago. And he keeps saying, don't worry, I'll pay you back. And then when you confront him in the pub, he says, I'll pay you tomorrow. You wouldn't believe him, would you? You're constantly promising what you will do, but what you haven't done so far.
We got the numbers down by a third last year. That had never happened before. Never, ever. The numbers had just gone up and up and up until I became Prime Minister. The numbers were down by a third last year, so people can trust me. We've got a plan.
You say that you're cutting taxes. You've got a bit of a nerve, haven't you? Under Rishi Sunak, as Chancellor and then Prime Minister, the total tax bill in this country has gone up by £93 billion a year. That's even more than Jeremy Corbyn wants to put on people.
And as you and I have discussed many times, Nick, what's happened in that period? We were hit by a once-in-a-century pandemic and then an energy crisis.
Income tax going up this year. Income tax going up next year. Income tax going up the next year. Year after year after year, you are increasing the income tax.
Nick,
Are people watching this programme, but you come in interviews and say, I'm cutting your tax.
Nick, the facts are very clear, and I'm sure your team will be able to provide them for you. Right now, with all the changes, because there's lots of changes that go on in a system, right now, an average worker is facing the lowest tax rate on their earnings that they have seen in this country for over 50 years.
You're talking about the tax rate, Prime Minister, which is very convenient for you because it's thresholds.
No, it combines. But no, Nick, Nick, that combines.
And then you come back.
It combines thresholds and the rate.
Forgive me.
The effective tax rate taken together for an average worker today, combining thresholds and the rate, is the lowest it has been in over 50 years.
3.7 million more people will pay income tax for the first time because of your policies. 2.7 million extra people will pay higher rate tax because of your policies. So you are increasing some taxes, income tax in particular, while you're cutting national insurance. So let's turn to the Labour Party. You've got a bit of a nerve, haven't you, having a go at the Labour Party? You've raised our taxes by record amounts, £93 billion. You produce some figures, criticised by the boss of the Treasury, criticised by the chair of the UK Statistics Authority, criticised by the former head of the civil service. And yet you come to this interview and you repeat something that you've said that they all think is misleading.
Because it's right. And the choice of this election is clear. We are going to keep cutting people's taxes. You'll see that in our manifesto tomorrow. You've seen it in the announcements that we've already made. Labour Party are going to put people's taxes up. We have been through their policies.
That independent Treasury officials had costed Labour policies. Yes. Independent Treasury officials didn't produce that figure that you keep repeating.
So there are 27 policies, as the letter from the Permanent Secretary...
Did they produce that figure, Prime Minister?
Let me explain. There are 27 different policies that underpin that figure. Of those 27, 21 are produced by independent Treasury officials, available online for people to see. 3 come from other government sources, 2 come from the Labour Party themselves, and 1 comes from an independent investment bank. Every single one of them is available, transparent, and you top them all up, and it amounts to £2,000 worth of tax rises for every working family in our country.
Yeah. When
and
you
that
say
is the
top
choice
them all up, what you mean
in
is
our
when
election.
Tory researchers top them all up, treat 4 years of figures as if it's 1 year, divide it between all the families, which no economist would ever do. You then produce a Conservative press release, and you claim that it's been produced by the Treasury when it hasn't. It's a Conservative figure.
Let's go through it again, Nick.
No,
there are 27. There are 27.
Something else.
Well, no, but you've made a point which isn't right. There are 27 figures, 27 policies. 21 of them are costed by the Treasury. 2 of them are from the Labour Party themselves. 3 from government sources, and 1 from an independent investment bank.
Okay.
You top them all up, divide by the number of households, and that's how you get £2,094 for every working family in our country. And I don't want to see that happen. And that is what the Labour Party will do.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what a future Labour government has got in store.
By the way, let's not run out of time, Robbins. We've other things to talk about. You've made your point. You think it's valid. I put to you that other people do not think it's valid. Many people are forced, even in their 30s, to live at home with mum and dad. They simply can't afford the rent, let alone afford to buy a house. Having your own home has got harder under a Conservative government, hasn't it?
It has got harder, and I want to make...
Nothing works in this country. You can't get a GP appointment, you can't get to dentist, you can't afford somewhere to live, the trains don't run on time, sewage get pumped into the rivers and the sea. Why do you deserve another chance?
Well, we haven't got time to go over all the things of the last 14 years. I point out one thing which you failed to mention on your list. Thanks to the Conservative education reforms, our children in this country are not just the best readers in the UK, they're the best readers in the Western world.
It's not just the Prime Minister who has had a car crash interview. There's been quite a few just lately. So, on screen right now is another one. Go watch that one next. Don't forget to hit that like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.